Okay, so one of the parts of composition when you're doing your A-level music tech composition that is a really big unit of the course, a really big unit of the mark scheme as well, that is worth a lot, is sampling. Now, I often find students are really confident creating interesting synth sounds, using filters, LFOs, ADSRs, making that really interesting. Now, sampling can be a bit of a different ball game. I think often when I sort of look at students' work, they'll say, "Oh, I have used samples because I've, sampled this drum or this one note of a piano," and that does work. And there are some really smart things you can do with sampling. But using sort of words or vocals or a poem might be a really good way of getting some sampling in there. So I'm going to show a few things here today. Um, One of the things I would say as well is one of the briefs is usually some text, a poem or something like that. So you have to use the text from the poem. The best way I would try to do that for the response to the brief marks is to turn that poem or the meaning of that poem into words or lyrics for a song that are going to be sung or rapped. But you could speak that poem into a microphone and then use some sampling techniques to sort of get yourself some marks there. So I'm going to show a few different sampling techniques, ways that you could use words or samples to probably get you a few more marks in your composition. So I've just found a poem here online, and I've got a bit of a backing here. I've got some drums and a synth. We're not really thinking about marking those today. Those are just a sort of backing. And we've got a poem. So we can listen to what that poem sounds like on top of our music. This currently would get no marks, and I sometimes see students do this. They think, "Oh, I'll just use some text. I'll just speak over the beat, or just talk over the beat, or just put this on with some reverb and I call that just dragging and dropping something into you." You get no marks. Like, you have to use sampling musically. So whether it's turning the sample into a very rhythmic based thing, turning it into an instrument, pitching it down, maybe using a vocoder, all things we'll talk about today, those are the ways you can creatively use it. This currently would get us no marks, just putting the poem or the vocal on top of a beat.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too.
So actually went in rhythm with it quite well, but again, it's just putting a poem on top of it and just dragging and dropping. That gets you no marks. So let's start with a first thing you could do, which would be using some slicing, some looping, some stuttering, all things that I've put here in maybe a checklist you could use. So we might think about transposing, slicing, stuttering, looping. Let's have a go at some of those. So again, I'm going to use my sampler plugin in Logic, so I can pick up my audio, drag it over onto the side here, and go quick sampler. So I'm going to do this in slice mode because I want to jump between specific words, almost kind of turn this guy into like almost not like he's rapping, but almost like a lyricist, an MC on top of this beat, rather than just someone talking on top of it. So I'm going to go to slice mode, and it's going to automatically add slices at all the transients. But I want to be really specific in which words and which things I choose out. So I'm going to come out of transient mode here and go to manual mode because I want to choose exactly where these slices are. And I'm going to put the gate mode on so that it stops playing when I stop pressing a key. So I can play it kind of like really efficiently. So let's find some words or some things that maybe go with, you would have a poem or some lyrics, so that would go with the theme of it, so we can really respond to that brief. But I'm just going to find some words or phrases that I think would work well.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you.
So maybe that blaming it on you part there.
Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you.
Okay, so that's going to be on my C note, and I'm going to make another slice, which now I can put something on C sharp here.
If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you.
Maybe all men doubt you.
And all men doubt you. And all men doubt you. And all men doubt you.
Okay, let's do a few more.
But make allowance for their doubting too. But make allowance. But
that breath is kind of cool.
But
so I bet if I just kind of use this as an instrument now and played it over the top of my beat, I might have some success. Let's have a listen.
blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. Blaming all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, and all men doubt, blaming it on you.
So we're looping there. We are using sort of stuttering. We could edit the vocal a bit more so it might fit a bit better. His voice is very bassy, so maybe I'll use a high pass filter on my sampler here.
Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you.
You could change the pitch if you wanted to, but I'm going to leave it as it is. So now we're doing some cool sampling stuff there. I'm not saying this would get you full marks, but we're doing some so far. So let's have a go at that. Let's record that in.
Blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you. And all men doubt you, blaming it on you. Blaming it on you.
I like that. It's made like a little bit of a hook there. Let's see if we can use this little breath that we got creatively at all. So I'm going to just duplicate this instrument. Maybe I'll use this in a transposing way. So slice just jumps between different parts of the sample. Maybe I'll use this little breath that we found and make that a bit of a pitched instrument. So to change the pitch, I'm going to go into classic mode. And let's find that breath. So I could write in almost like a little percussive part with this now. I might compress it. Maybe add some delay to make it a bit more rhythmic. Okay, let's just mute the other parts. And I could play this in with my keyboard, or maybe I could use a MIDI region or even a pattern region to try to come up with something here. It's only giving me just the one note, but I want to play this in lots of notes. So let's see, can I add? I always forget how to do this in Logic. I can't remember how to add a bunch of notes. There's a really quick way to do it though. Let's just use a MIDI track for now because that's going to frustrate me. So I'm going to add a MIDI track. And I could sort of make some percussive ideas now with this, this little breath. So let's just play our track. So maybe I'll just do it soloed so we can hear it for a sec, and then I can mix it in.
Blaming it on you.
Do it a bit higher so it sticks out. So I'm going to try to create some interesting rhythms, and I'm going to make it so that only one sample, it can only play one at a time, so that we get, I'm going to make it monophonic so that they can't overlap each other. And try do some cool rhythmic stuff. So if we listen to that with our drums. Obviously, there's a million and one things you could do there to make that more interesting, but I'm just giving you some ideas, so taking like a breath or a note or something like that. And of course, we can do pitch bends, all sorts of things. We could use the LFO in our sampler to make it do some more interesting things as well. Let's have a go at something a bit more complex now. Let's do some vocoding. This is a really cool idea. So I'm going to create a new software instrument, and I'm going to use Logic's Evoc 20 vocoder synth here. And I'll just copy, so this is just a synthesizer, a special kind of synthesizer, and I'm just going to copy my chords that I wrote on this synth that we can hear in the background down onto this instrument now. I'll mute that instrument. So you can hear when we just play it back, it just plays back like a synth. But we want this vocoder to be triggered by our sample, our voice, this one.
If you can keep your head.
That one. So we're going to make that voice open this synth or trigger this vocoder synth. So we're going to go sidechain at the top here and choose our sample. There it is. And we might need to change this signal here to be Voc.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs.
And we might want to mute this track so that it's just used as a trigger track.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs.
So it's quite bassy, so maybe we need to bring these chords up an octave or two.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and bring it on you. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and bring it on you. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and bring it on you.
So that's a really cool thing you can do, is using a vocode, and there's tons of really good presets in Logic, in the Logic one.
When all about you are losing theirs and bring it on you. You can trust yourself when all men doubt you.
Bring that one up an octave as well.
You can trust yourself when all men doubt you. But make allowance for their doubting too. You can trust your allowance for their doubting too. You can trust yourself when all men doubt you. Allowance for their doubting too.
So there's a million and one things you could do there, but I would have a play with a vocoder, whether it's a poem or a sung thing, or you could layer up some vocals on top of that. Some really cool ideas you could do with that. Other ones then. Let's have a look at those things that. Okay, I'm going to do a few more sampling techniques now, showing a few other things that you can do that would get you marks in your composition for music tech. So I've got a little MIDI drum clip I've made here. It sounds like this. Now, having it as MIDI triggering a virtual instrument's great, or triggering samples, but sometimes we might want to actually look at the waveforms and look at the audio, and that might allow us to do some other things to it. So anytime we want to turn MIDI into audio, we can just right-click on the clip, bounce in place here, and then it will give us the same thing, sounds the exact same, but now we've got the audio, a bounce out, an actual audio version of it here. Okay, and that allows me to do quite some cool things. One of the things that would get you some marks with sampling is time stretching. So let's find. I'll just show you on a smaller section to start, or sorry, on a larger section to start, and I'll show you how you could do it on individual transients. So at the minute, if I come to the edge of a clip, I just get the crop tool where I can crop parts out, or if there was more on this side, I could make it longer. But if I hold Option and come to the end of the clip, I get this time stretching tool. So at the minute, it's a 4-bar loop. Well, let's stretch it out to be 8 bars. That means now it's going to play in half time, but it's going to have this cool time stretched effect. Sounds very glitchy. And you can do it to individual transients as well, which can make quite a cool effect. So if I just reverse that and take this original crash, so let's take that part there, just this original transient, I'll just crop it out with Command T. I'll duplicate it over here. I could stretch out a crash symbol and that might sound quite cool. Let's have a listen to that. So it usually takes up a crotchet. I'm going to make it take a significantly longer period of time here. A whole bar. Sounds all grainy and cool. You could even stretch it out longer. This is that aliasing that we might have talked about in class before. But very cool. So you could mix in some time stretch parts with normal parts. So like, say when we get to the, as like a little drum fill. So maybe just like this hi-hat here, maybe I'll take that, do something weird with it. So I could drag that down, and then maybe I'll time stretch that out, sound a bit different. Maybe at the end here I could take this transient and have it do something a bit funky at the end here. Obviously you wouldn't want to do this every bar, but as like a little drum fill or some ear candy, quite nice to have things like this. Lay it up, so like that. Quite cool, not perfect, but fairly cool. As well, I'll show you reversing things. So this crash cymbal might be nice at the end of like 8 bars or 4 bars to have it a reverse crash. So if I click on the audio here, and I can go, there's a way to do it here. If I go into playback here, you can see there's reverse on and off, but it's not letting me do it at the moment. Why is that? It's not letting me do it because, that's the way I usually do it, sorry. So I select the clip, and I go to region in the top here, more, and then you can put reverse on. Now this crash cymbal is going to be in reverse. Let's listen to it. So that sounded kind of cool. And you could have that right before it loops back around. Might give a cool effect. I'm just going to mute this one so we can hear it a bit better. So we'll have our drums. Sorry. Yeah, it's really good on like snare drums to use reverses like that as well. If I had a snare drum, I'll just show you very quickly. Pattern region here. So if I have a big snare drum, to make that snare drum a bit longer, I could put some reverb on it. I'll show you why I'm doing this in a sec, so let me put some long reverb on it. If I bounce that in place now, so I need to bounce it in place with effects. So bounce in place, and I'm going to put, make sure the effects aren't bypassed here. I could then put that in reverse, which might be quite cool. So I'll just select the snare drum hit here. Select the snare drum, go to region, reverse. You get a really cool reverse reverb sound. Really good thing to maybe start a piece with. So we could have something like this. Okay. Another cool one you can do is the fading of pitch over time. So I'll just show you that maybe on a vocal might be easier. So let me grab a bit of this vocal again.
But make allowance for their doubting too.
So this bit at the end here, I'll just show it on. So I'll just trim this bit off. So again, we can time stretch this. Holding Option.
For their doubting too.
But we can also change pitch over time. So when you've done volume fades before, you've gone up here, you've gone to the fade tool and added in a fade just like that. Well, we can actually make this fade, not fade volume, but fade pitch. So what we would do is we put our fade in there and we can right click on the fade, and instead of it being a fade, we can click slow down. Listen to this now.
For their doubting.
Let me just mute the drums so you can hear it a little bit better.
For their doubting.
So you could hear it had like a tape stop effect on it. And you can do sort of a tape start effect as well if you fade it in. Right click on it. Speed up.
They're doubting.
You could hear that's tape effects.
They're doubting.
Good sampling stuff. On drums it can be really cool as well. Let me show you on this little drum clip here. Fade in. Fade out, sorry, slow down. There's like a little fill, or even over a long period of time, getting faster. Need to fade. Speed up. Could be a really cool intro to your drums. Really cool thing to use there. And again, you could use it on something melodic, but you need to have audio. You can't do this with MIDI. So if I took my chords that I had before, bounce in place, I could do all the same things. So here we've got our audio of it. I could use time stretch it out. So here's it, how it sounds normally. I could stretch it out. Need to come off my fade tool. So it's 8 bars originally, so maybe I'll stretch it out to be 16. It'll really change the timbre of the instrument. What if I stretch it even further? I could try stretch it 32 bars. Might sound a bit crazy now. Let's hear it. So you can get some really interesting textures and timbres with these things. Now with its time stretch, what if I added a speed up fade over maybe lots of bars? We might not listen to the whole thing, but let's have a listen. Really, really cool stuff that you could be using. As well, to make it even more spicy, what if I put it in reverse as well? Will it let me do this? Yes. So now it's got a fade up and it's in reverse. It's got all those crazy things on it. All really cool sampling stuff you should be and could be using on vocals, drums, chords, pads, whatever. Another and last little thing you could do that will get you some marks. I'll just show this for now on my stereo out track, but you've got to be really careful if you're doing it on your stereo out track, but you could do it on any instrument. It's just an audio effect. So let's come back to this. Put my breaths in there that we did before.
Blaming it on you, and all men doubt you. Blaming it on you, and all men doubt you. Blaming it on you, and all men doubt you.
So one of the things you can do is go onto audio effects. As the last thing I'm going to show, and use these remix effects, So this uses some sampling at times. You can do tape stops and starts. You can do this gating effect, which isn't necessarily sampling, and these sort of stutter effects with the repeater. So I'll just show that. Tape stop.
And doubt you. And doubt you. You all men doubt you. Blaming it on you. And doubt you. Blaming it on you. All men 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 doubt you.
So you could obviously automate that in, but the best way to do it would be go into touch mode and record that touch automation in. All really good sampling stuff that I find lots of students forget to try out these things and use these things, which really get you into the top band marks. So make sure you have a play with those and think about how you can incorporate them into your composition.